Okay, well, welcome back for the second paper of the judging of the winner of the 2007 Practice Prize. The second paper is Pricing Digital Content Product Lines, a Model and Application for National Academies Press. The authors of this presentation are P.K. Cannon, Barbara Klein-Pope and Sanjay Jain. So I would ask you to welcome Barbara Klein-Pope to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you. I am Barbara Klein-Pope, and I'm the Executive Director of the National Academies Press. P.K. Cannon from the Smith School at the University of Maryland and I will be presenting today, and Sanjay Jain is in the audience and will be here for the question session. What we really want to cover today is I want to give you a brief overview of the National Academies Press, really who we are, what we do, what the problem is that we're facing, as well as the problem that many publishers are facing. PK is going to then take the next bullet items and discuss all of the research, and then I'll come back up and talk a little bit about the summary of the impact as well as the transportability of our research. The National Academy Press is the publisher of the National Academy of Sciences and its affiliated organizations, or 4 organizations that are part of the National Academies. The National Academy of Sciences was created way back in 1863 by Abraham Lincoln to advise the federal government in all matters of science. And today, these 4 institutions are really seen as the highest authorities in the areas of science, engineering, and medicine. We attract more than 7,000 volunteers each year who examine major issues that are facing our country, including things from stem cell research to global climate change, to infectious disease. It is these studies that are done by these experts that we then publish and commercialize into books. So it is our responsibility to disseminate those books as far and as wide as we possibly can, with a constraint that we need to be completely self-sustaining. And while we're nonprofit, we are motivated to build in profit so that we can reach more audiences and increase our dissemination mission. We really want to build value and get it out to our audiences as widely as possible. We publish about 200 books a year. We have very little direct competition because of our authority in the area of science policy. The other thing is that you can see from these titles of these books that we operate in many niche markets. We're facing a problem that many, many, many other publishers are facing. So we and the entire publishing industry, and when I say entire publishing industry, I include newspapers, magazines, journals, as well as trade books and scholarly book publishers. We are in a huge, major transition based on the digital revolution, as well as the web as a platform for delivering our content. And we've all been working for a pretty long time and very hard to figure out what the best business models are for being able to support the print versions of our content as well as the digital versions, because we have different market segments who want those 2 products. And there are many, many issues surrounding all of this. One of those is pricing, and that's what we're going to cover today. But before we get to the actual details of the National Academies Press and how we're actually navigating this transition, I want to set this problem into context. And those of you who read Opus every Sunday know that while it might not be always funny, it's very witty, and it's a great way to encapsulate this particular cultural issue of how people view the choices between digital books and printed books. Okay, so in this comic strip, Waywired Willie really represents the segment of our customers who strongly prefer the electronic versions of our books. And Opus represents those customers in our segment who love printed books and really can't envision a world without them. And that's how they are different. But the way they're alike is that they both view each of those product forms as perfect substitutes. So let's think about these 2 segments as we go through and explain. I'm going to explain in the next slide how we started out navigating this transition that many, many publishers are in, and we are as well. So to do that well, I need to take you back to 1994. If you can remember a time before Amazon and before Google and before PDF, we were really pioneers in this area. In 1994, we were offering to our customers and our visitors to our website the full text of our content in page-by-page format with fax quality images for free. And what was happening is that was maximizing that dissemination mission that I talked about. But also it meant that our books were finally able to be found, because bricks and mortar bookstores tend not to carry our kinds of scholarly books. So finally people could come to the website, look through it, find it, and buy a printed copy. Another thing that this did was, because you could page through the entire book, you would know for certain whether or not this book interested you. So this was a huge breakthrough for us, and sales of our printed books grew tremendously during this time period, and as you might imagine, the visitors to the website grew even faster because it was so content rich. We had 500,000 pages of content on the site at that time. But in 2001, the landscape was changing. Those people who were content with the page-by-page image format and then were content to wait for snail mail to deliver the actual printed book were no longer wanting that. What they wanted, what they were telling us they wanted, was a PDF version of the books. They wanted to be able to own it, download it, have it immediately, and not to do this kind of slow page-by-page reading. We had lots of questions surrounding that. We knew that people wanted PDF. We didn't know how many. That was anecdotal evidence. We had customers telling us that what they wanted, but we didn't know what proportion of our customer base would want PDF. Also, we didn't know what value they would place on PDF. And how would it affect the demand for print? Based on how we would price the PDF, it could cannibalize the sales of print. In addition, if PDF were all free, of course, then we would have major cannibalization. These were questions that all of us in the publishing industry were facing at that time. We were not in this alone. Because we were new and pioneers in this area, there was no data, at least no public data. And everybody was just guessing about what kind of prices to attach to the electronic content. And we really wanted to base our decisions on data and on evidence. And as you might imagine, the heart of everything we do at the National Academy of Sciences is based on data and evidence. In fact, the books that we publish are authoritative because of that rigor. So I was very surprised that the leadership of the National Academy of Sciences was adverse to allowing us the time and the money to actually collect data in order to try to answer these questions. And I think there were two reasons for that dichotomy. One reason was definitely because scientists, they just want content to be free because science moves forward based on access to other people's knowledge. And that knowledge then builds over time. So when we were technically able to make a PDF file quickly and post it, they were pushing us very hard to do that. Another reason, a second reason, is that people just really thought that the answer were already very clear, that this was going to be a waste of time and money. To people like Bruce Alberts, who was then the president of the National Academy of Sciences, it was clear that we should give PDFs away for free. It was going to help the world. It would build knowledge around the world. They were also saying to me, and don't worry about your business model, because people will still buy the printed book. So in the parlance of this research, what they were saying is that the printed form and the electronic form were very strong complements. And I didn't agree with that. And I was still going to be held fiscally responsible if we put all these PDFs out for free. So I was pushing hard to be able to collect data and have evidence to base our pricing decisions on and to base our marketing decisions on. And as you might expect, winning an argument with a room full of Nobel laureates is a very difficult job. These are people who just want to make the world a better place, and giving free PDFs seemed to be, in their heart, in their gut, the right thing to do. And so we had many rounds of arguments about this, and when you have no data, it just turns into sort of he said, she said kinds of things. But in the end, we did do the research. And how did that happen? Well, we went out and raised the money on the outside, so it didn't cost our institution any money. The Mellon Foundation was very interested in funding this kind of research. So we went ahead and did it, and it's a good thing we did. I'll give you a quick preview right now of the results before PK comes up and tells you how we did the study. If we hadn't done this and given away free PDFs, which we decided not to do, we would have needed $2 million of subsidy from our institution every single year. And so you can imagine the reason we decided not to give free PDFs is because our institution didn't want to give us $2 million a year. So it was fabulous that we actually did the research. So having convinced the leadership that we should move forward with this research, we had the formal research questions we needed to start to frame. And today we're going to cover those. And one of the most important is how should we price these different product formats for the National Academies Press? Should we offer the bundle? That's both the print and the PDF. If we do offer that bundle, what value would people place on that? How should we price that? And then, of course, what would all of the impacts of all of these different policies have on our revenues, on our profits, as well as on our ability to get the information out as widely as possible and to satisfy our stakeholders? So now to the research. This brings us to the research. And really, really brings you to the beginning of what has been an effective and long-standing partnership between research and practice. And so I'm going to turn it over to PK.
Thanks, Barbara. Now, we knew that there was Opus, there was Wavewired Willy. And so when Sanjay and I started out, we said we'll have to model this at the individual customer level. So we started looking at the individual utilities. And we said, well, the utilities of individuals should be functions of their individual specific fit of the content for which they are coming to NAP's website, and also the preference they have for the print and the PDF formats, and taken into account the disutility for price. And as far as the bundle is concerned, we said, well, the bundle is the maximum of the preference parameters they have for the individual formats, and plus another term which determines an individual's substitutability and complementarity perception. So if this particular parameter was 0, which really means that people are looking at this as perfect substitutes. On the other hand, if beta IB were greater than the minimum of either of these two parameters, then we would say they are complements. Anything in between, we would say that they are imperfect substitutes. And these parameters were to be estimated using a choice model, and the choice data itself were to be collected at NAP's website, and we were going to estimate this using a finite mixture model formulation. So once you get the segment level parameters and the distribution of individual fit, which we intended asking people as they came to the website and interacted with us, we can calculate the expected market penetration of these individual formats and the bundle within the segments, and then we can write out the profit function for each of the formats and the bundle across the segments, and then sum it up. And so we have here the maximization function. The objective is to maximize profits across all the formats, subject to the price of the bundle has to be less than or equal to the individual formats prices. Now, this thing was estimated. This is a highly non-concave function. We estimated using adaptive search algorithms. Now, one of the important points of our research is how are you going to collect the data? And sampling is a challenge. And why I say that? Visitors to the website, if you look at them, 60 to 75% of these people just view one page at NAP's website. From wherever they come from, they are there just for one page, and they're gone. Even though they have large number of visitors, there were only a few sales that were materializing. And people's preferences had this long tail phenomena. Okay, the conversion rate as a result was less than 0.6%. And if you recall, in the first slide we said we want to look at their individual fit to the content, and we certainly need to know who these folks are, who's looking at the titles, and we essentially wanted to find out who the potential buyers are, because there's a lot of people who come and just leave. Now, if you look at this free browse feature that Barbara was talking about 6 to 10% of the visitors spent time there, and they were interacting with the title. And we said, well, that's possibly one place where we can actually intercept people and get at this market of potential buyers that we are interested in. So the question then became, how are you going to intercept people at what points at the website so that you can get good data from these potential buyers? And we said there are 2 points where we could do that, and we assumed that people coming to these 2 different points were from the same population, but they were at the different stages of their purchase process. So this is what we did. So we had a group A, consumers with books in their shopping cart, and these folks are going to check out, and we intercept them at that particular point. And then there are group B consumers who were browsing books for which we had the PDF available, and these folks were also intercepted. So we intercept them, present the details of the PDF book to both the groups, and also, although the order in which these things were offered to them, all of them had this option, would you like to buy the PDF now? Now, if they said they had options like just the PDF, both print and PDF, or just print, and then if they bought something, then they get a small survey for additional discount, and they continue the checkout process. Now, if the person from group A just wanted to stick to print, we again did, well, we reduced the PDF price one level lower and made the same offer. Would you like to buy the PDF now? And of course, this was done because we can get more data on an individual customer. And if they then made their choices, they could either say no and go off, and we had a small survey for them. Otherwise, they could buy something and still we had the survey. Now, it's important to understand this group A people already had print in their cart. And when they chucked the print out in favor of PDF, we are getting something like a cannibalization of the print by PDF. Whereas in group B, people could have just left without buying anything, but if the PDF forms were made available to them at a lower price, they could have bought it. So there could be some market expansion effect. So the whole thing was estimated using a choice model, but we had collected data, and obviously here, group A has a sampling problem. It's a choice-based sample, and so we had to make corrections for the choice-based sample that we did. Now I'm going to give you an example of how this went with group A. And here is a person coming in to buy electoral systems in conflict and divided societies. Tries to check out, gets this interception. It says a PDF version is available of the book of this electoral systems in conflict and divided societies. The PDF version costs $14.40. The print version also costs $14.40. And we give some information about how much it takes to download. Remember, this was 5 years ago. And so the idea was to see what they would do under this situation. And of course, the PDF version prices were varied, and this shows the case where it was at 100%. And they had this option in the same screen to buy PDF and print, or buy print only. Now, if they said, I want to just stick to the print, the prices are lowered from $14.40 to $10.80. Now, would you like to buy the electronic version now? And please be aware that we will not lower the price any further if you say no. This is our final price. And again, the same options were given, and we collected the data. And after they check out, before they check out, they have this option to do this survey where we get information on their fit. Now, the online choice experiment itself included 500 titles out of the 2,500 titles that NAP had at the time. Now, here we fixed the print format price at the existing levels. And the reason was some people might have come and looked at these print titles before, and we didn't want any price expectation problems to arise, so we decided to keep the print prices the same as the existing level. But the PDF prices were varied at 6 levels, 0%, giving it away for free, 25%, till about 110%. Now, these prices were randomized, so it's something like a fractional factorial design where we had subjects, we had the relative levels of the absolute levels of the print book and the popularity of the titles, looking at the number of visits it had in the last 1 month. And based on this online choice experiment, we were able to collect the data. And this is the details of the finite mixture model estimates that we did. And we have four segments here, and they are ordered in terms of the increasing preference for PDF. You see here segment 1, which almost wholly prefers a print, whereas segment 4 is the segment which prefers the PDF the most. And segment 1 also views the product forms as almost perfect substitutes, whereas segment 3 views them as the most imperfect substitutes. And then you have the most price-sensitive segments as segment 2 and 3. Now, this information, along with the fit data, we were able to then run optimization models to figure out what should be the optimal price. So I'm going to give you an example for one particular title. This is for Ready, Set, Science. The list price at that time was $23. The marginal cost of print was $6.36. And assuming 1 unit of market size, the optimal pricing here, if you were to price the print, PDF, and the bundle, is given by what you see there with a profit of $11.94. Now you can see here the print is actually priced higher than the list price of $23. The flip side of this is your penetration is going to go down to lower levels to what you had before. And of course, NAP didn't want that to happen because penetration was important. So if you fix the print price as the existing levels and where to optimize for the PDF and the bundle, what would be the situation? The profit does come down to $8.93, but now at least the print is still at the current price. Now on the final line, you see that if you were to make this decision without taking into account the interdependency between the forms, assume that these two were two different product categories and independently bought, and if you make that decision, you find that your profits are actually much lower, and the bundle price is just adding up the print and the PDF. And so it shows the value of taking into account people's substitutability and complementarity parameter varying across the individual consumers who come to the market. Now, of course, NAP wanted a policy where they said, well, I don't want to go title by title and do this. Let's have a single policy which will tell me how should I be pricing PDF and the bundle relative to the print prices. And so based on the 2 years data that we had prior to the experiment, we came up with this policy, pricing policy implications. And here the bundle price is fixed at 120% of the print price. Now you can see here the red line indicates the cannibalization impact of giving away PDF at different price levels. So you have 0% there. So if you were to give away PDF at 0%, the cannibalization impact on the sales revenue is almost 46%. So this is half your sales are gone because you're giving away PDF for free. Now if you increase your PDF to higher levels of price, obviously the cannibalization impact reduces. But that also reduces your penetration. But on the whole, since you're getting more revenue, the market expansion effect on sales revenue starts increasing and starts decreasing later on as the penetration starts coming down very, very fast. So the net impact that you see here is this. If you were to price PDF at 75% of the print book price, then you have the maximum impact, and you essentially end up with a 7.4% increase in your sales, considering 100 as your sales, prior sales. Now, the implementation took place in April of 2003 after we did the experiment in late 2002. Print was at 75% of the print price. The PDF price was 75% of the print price. Bundle at 120%. 3,000 titles. Free browsing still at the same level as before. And this is the impact. This is the aggregate sales 1 year after the introduction of PDF and bundle. And you can see the model prediction of the different formats in units and the actuals. Fairly close. The model actually over-predicted on some cases with the actuals that are a little lower. And overall web sales increased by 14.4% over the previous year's sales versus the model prediction of 7.4%. Of course, if you were to take that into account, you have to control for the impact of marketing mix because new titles gets released every year. There are promotions, exhibits, printer ads, flyers, internet mailing, web discounts. So we did a persistent modeling on the data that we collected 1 year after, so 1 year prior and 1 year after, to understand what was the impact of the policy alone. And what we found was the impact of PDF introduction on overall sales was close to 10% increase. Now, this gave a lot of confidence for NAP because they were going to make some rather drastic policy changes based on this and try to give PDF away for free. But at least it gave a lot of confidence for NAP that this model really works and they can actually depend on it. And you can also see here that daily PDF sales were increasing. The weekly moving average was also showing an increasing trend. So what did they do? In June of 2004, 1 year after introducing, they completely outsourced their print operations. In October of 2004, they started giving free PDFs for the developing countries users. In February 2005, free PDFs of slow-moving titles were given to all users. And the penetration of titles actually increased by a factor of 5 as compared to the prediction by the model about a factor of 2. Now, of course, the model doesn't take into account the word of mouth and other effects. And the persistence modeling of actual sales clearly validated the model predictions. And in January of 2006, they looked at the strength of PDF sales and increased the relative price for PDF formats from 75% to 85%. Now, this shows a glimpse of their overall sales. And you can see here, even when the PDF was introduced and even when free PDFs were given away, and with the PDF price hikes, they have been pretty steady, increasing, and self-sustaining. And Barbara will come now and finish up. Thank you.
Okay, the policies that PK just explained to you has meant that we've been successful in navigating through this particular transition period. We've been able to adhere to our dual mission. As you can see from this first chart, we've been able to increase dissemination and satisfy those key stakeholders, which is basically the scientific community. In 2002, we were attracting about 5 million visitors to our website. And by 2006, we were attracting 18 million visitors a year to our website. As you can see from the blue line, those 18 million people are reading like crazy. We've served up in 2006, 120 million pages were read, or at least looked at. At the same time, in 2004, 2005, we decided to give away our books, as PK said, to developing countries for free. But we also took a group of our slow-moving titles and gave those away for free in PDF, because we knew how much money we would lose from that based on the model. So we felt comfortable going ahead with that. And at the same time, uptake increased dramatically. The fact that I'm still employed by the National Academy of Sciences and I'm standing up here talking to you means that we're financially self-sustaining. We've taken the excess revenue that we've had, our profits, and invested that into the website to build tools that increase value to the customers who are there visiting the site and the customers who actually purchase a printed book. I want to finish the presentation by talking a bit about the scale of impact and the transportability of this research. I want to emphasize that the scale of the impact is much, much broader than that of our own organization. The monopolistic quality of the market for scholarly books tends to allow the transportability of the research, but there's also a side effect of that monopolistic market, and that is that we as scholarly publishers share information very widely because we're not competing head-to-head and title by title. So this slide shows just a sampling of the places where we went and presented this research to a broad community. For example, at the American Booksellers Association meeting, that would include members of the scholarly book publishing community, as well as the commercial trade publishers, as well as Amazon and other people. So we really reached much more broadly with this research. And every single place we went, people would come up to us afterwards and say how they could apply the information from this research to their own programs. And so they were applying this to their own programs to try to increase value to their customers, whether those customers were the way-wired Willies or the Opuses or the customer segments in between. Thank you.
Thank you very much, PK. Thank you very much, Barbara. Ross Weiner and Jorge Silva-Rizzo are going to address some questions to the presenters.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I know many of you in the audience haven't had a chance to read the paper, but the paper itself was very clearly written, and of course we always appreciate that. I have a question about the profit maximization versus the mission of the organization. When you take a look at the experimental design, there was one slide where you showed that you optimized with respect to no constraints on price, and then you had the second line below that was suppose you fix price and found out what would be the price of the bundle with the idea of penetration behind that. I'm wondering if that was the welfare maximization solution. Why didn't you allow price for the hard copy to maybe even be reduced if you were more concerned about, say, customer welfare, disseminating science versus maximizing profitability and sustaining the organization?
Okay. I'll let Barbara talk about, because she set the standard for as to what we wanted to do. And so let Barbara speak, and then I'll add.
We were really interested in profitability because we wanted to make sure that we had enough money to continue to invest in our website. As I said, we were pioneers in the digital world. We wanted to continue to be able to develop those tools. We needed some excess revenue in order to do that and to capitalize the program. We have to break even every year. We don't get to move money from year to year to year. So we need to try to build as much profit as we can as we go through the year to be able to then plow that back into being able to invest in the tools that we need to provide them, which then extend value. Dissemination also comes from many different ways, not just from the PDF, but also the free content that's online and other ways. So we wanted to be able to maximize dissemination, but use the profitability in order to do that. I'm going to turn it back to PK now.
All right. And so one of the questions, of course, is if you want to take that into account and maximize it, maximizing welfare, we could have done that. But since we had a very clear instruction from NAP that this is the way that we want to go, we have technical people who really want to be on the cutting edge and do pioneering stuff. And some of the things that they have done in their website by using this excess revenue, by giving the skimming feature where they can skim through different portions of the book and things like that, are a testimony to the fact that the way that they were looking at it was a little different from looking at maximizing the welfare.
But just a quick follow-up: if you had lowered in the experiment, if you had lowered the price of the hard copy and still manipulated the prices on the PDF version, it's possible you could have got higher profit level and higher penetration rate, right?
Sure. That is a good point. And the reason that we couldn't really play around with the print prices so much was the fact that people might have come there and looked at the prices before, and they kind of have some knowledge about the prices. And so by changing the prices in the experiment, by moving it around, that might actually be some customer expectation effects that may come into picture, because there's a reference price that we have to take into account they may have, and looking at some prices moving around. So we thought that varying too many variables at the time maybe not be a good idea.
But when we optimize, actually, if we were to, our optimal solution actually asks us to have a higher print price and not lower one. So the profits will actually be higher. They're actually having a lower price than they should in terms of optimal profits.
Right, but without manipulating price at a lower level, you don't know. Anyway, I'll stop. Jorge.
Well, continue with the optimization. And your optimization is based on the consumer behaviors that you capture with online experiment before implementing the model. After you implemented the model, those behaviors may have changed. Do don't you think that you need to update or repeat frequently the experiment to make sure that you are really optimizing on the real behaviors?
Okay, let me answer it this way. When we actually performed the experiment in late 2002 and implemented it in 2003, we looked at how our results matched up after 1 year, and the results were fairly, like I showed you, were fairly on target, which really said, well, this was not a problem of any experimental thing affecting their later behavior, because our results seem to be fairly on target. And you are right about, over time, we do need to take into account that people's preferences might change. And in fact, when I showed you the thing about PDF preferences going up over time, it would have been a useful thing to repeat the experiment. Of course, the question of getting extra money and performing those kinds of activities may be a little bit of a problem. So what NAP actually did was use those ideas in trying to adjust it over time. And that's the, you saw a slide which said PDF prices were slightly adjusted upward over time to reflect the, but I agree that this needs to be on a continual basis. We have to look to see how customers' preferences are and how they are changing over time, and that is the way we should go about doing it.
Okay, thank you.
Just to go back to the experiment again, I was kind of curious why you chose to offer a discount on the PDF after they said no initially, if I was reading that right, but not a discount on the bundle.
Okay.
Why only one and not the other, especially since, at least my notes say 21% of Group A chose to buy the bundle, so obviously there's a lot of interest in the bundle.
Right. The reason that we gave discounts on the PDF and not on the bundle was again an issue of we're giving them a new kind of a format, and then we dropped price one level. And the reason for dropping the price one level is to get extra additional data from customers. And since we were using a latent class technique, the more data that we get from customers at different price points, it'll be useful for us to estimate. So that was a reason why we actually dropped the data. Now, the reason why we didn't drop the data on the bundle was to ensure that we don't give too much information overload. Now, that does create a problem in the sense that when you have the bundle price to be just the print price plus the PDF price, you cannot identify format-specific price parameters for all the forms. We can do it only up to 2 forms. And in fact, when we did our experiment and we did the analysis, we found that even with the 2 forms that we identified, the pricing coefficients were not very different. And so we said, well, we are fine here using discounts on PDF and not on the bundle. And as we saw in the final slide, that actuals and the predictions from the model somewhat was very encouraging to us in the sense that we had actually taken the preferences properly into our model.
Okay.
Well, the last question. You mentioned Amazon in the presentation, and so I wonder if you could explain in some detail how Amazon may implement your approach.
Okay. As most of you know, Amazon doesn't give out any information about what they're actually doing. I just know that they were at all of our presentations very interested in what we were doing. We had really Search Inside the Book way before they did. So as our page by page in 1994 was before they did. They're selling ebooks now, they're not selling PDF files. They could very easily use this information to apply to their own books. I would recommend, however, that they apply it to their scholarly books that they retail. And they do retail every book, basically, that's published. I would not recommend, for example, that they apply this to trade books.
Interesting. Just a follow-up question for more related to the models. What you may have some recommendations in terms of modifying your approach in a certain way if it is applied in the commercial online side. So what would be your recommendations?
Well, we had thought about using these ideas and looking at other content markets, looking at magazines and music, for example, where there are different formats that are available, and whether when the music publishers were very upset about CD revenues going down because of online, why not they try to bundle these formats like what we would do here, and try to get additional revenues through the bundling and create complementarities between those two forms where people could buy their CDs and also have an iTunes MP3 file or iTunes residing in their, the ones that they use it. And so I think there are ways in which you can probably take these ideas and use it for commercial, but the experiments that we have to do there might be more constraining. And remember that the kinds of segments that we are dealing with are people who read scholarly books, and they are not likely to take those things and send the PDFs around the whole world. Okay, so there are obvious constraints when you do it in a commercial setting. So to that extent, I think if you can do these experiments in a controlled setting and then try to find out people's preferences, you can come up with new ways in which you can market these information products. And that is something that we want to really point out, is that this is just a start of looking at how you can market information products, and people have not really looked at, people are worried about cannibalization, but not too many people are looking at how these formats can actually be complements.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.